He believes that the first fighter to the center of the ring wins the fight. So if you go back and watch the tape, you see I will run to the center of the ring. And when the first bell rung, I was moving like this, just moving. I wasn't really scared, because boxers are not scared, but I was concerned. So I'm moving around. Then all of a sudden, because in the gym I look great, but the gym has no bearing on how you would fight, because it's not the real thing. So he's moving towards me. Then I said, God, it still works. And throughout the first 3-4 rounds, he said, stop it, fight like a man, you little bit. Come on, fight like a man, you little. I said, no. So after the fight, this is exactly what happened. After the fight, I went over towards him, I grabbed him, I gave him a kiss on the cheek. I said, you're still a champ to me. He thought I said, you are the champ. I didn't say that. But Marvin Hagler, without question, when I get in here, in fact, before I even say that, and listen, I have tough skin. Those of you who thought Marvin Hagler wanted to fight, raise your hand. And that's okay, it's okay. You son of a bitch. What is it? Okay, well, that's what you want. Okay. No, but you know what? I didn't care about the title, I really didn't. I cared about beating one of the best middleweights, without question, in the world. Let's give him a round of applause. I will call him tonight and tell him to give that applause.
Can we take you back to after Benitez? Hold on a second.
What did you say?
The weakness in Hagler when you were watching him fight with him.
The weakness I saw, Johnny Beats Mugabe. Have you guys seen Johnny Beats Mugabe? I mean, he's a monster, but he's a slugger. And he was just jabbing Hack, and Hack was like, boom, boom, boom. And I'm saying, I know my hands are faster than his hands are. And I just saw that with mobility, keeping Hagler off balance would be such a factor in beating him. But also, I did things, and these things are very spontaneous, because at times, even with Duran, the no mas, I stuck my chin out. And these things you don't practice, you don't do. I wound up here, he went that, and these things just make him mad. And I did everything to get under his skin. And that's what happened, you know. Listen, the fight was a great fight with Hagler. I hit him more times than he hit me, and that's the name of the game.
Absolutely. Can we take you back to your first fight with Roberto Giovanni?
No.
Oh. Just as a build-up to your second fight with Roberto Giovanni.
I fought Duran June of 1980.
Yeah.
And this is what happened. See, I'm telling you guys all this secret stuff. I've never met a guy, a fighter, is so intimidating, if you will, because we were taking pictures with gloves on, and Duran would put the fist under my chin. I thought it was cute. Boom, boom, boom. Then he'll kick me, and then he pushed me, he shoved me, he cursed me. And he didn't curse my wife, and although it was in Spanish, no translation was really necessary. He got in my skin. I mean, I was so mad with him, because I was always taught, if there's a camera, you smile. So when Dwayne would hit me and call me these things, use these hand gestures, I would smile at him. So he challenged my manhood. I was so mad that all of a sudden, I said, I'm gonna beat him at his own game. I'm gonna stand toe to toe with this guy. That was not smart. That man, they call him Manos de Piedras. The hands are strong. He hits like bricks. And throughout the fight, man, he hit me, he used his head, all this kind of stuff. So after the fight, which I lost, my wife fainted, by the way. I got to my room, my hotel room, and my doctor came in there with a hydrogen needle and drew blood from my ears, because, you know, if not, they were cauliflower. And I went on a vacation for, well, it was scheduled for 2 weeks. But as I was running on the beach, people saying, hey, Ray, hey, man, if you boxed him, you could beat him. I hear these things. And I'm running. So I called my attorney. I said, Mike, I want to fight Duran. He said, excuse me, I said, I want to fight Duran as soon as possible because I knew Duran was kind of like Ricky Hatton. Because after a fight, he had fun. And Duran would go from 147, which was my weight, to 200 pounds plus. So I wanted to fight him as soon as possible, which is what happened in that fight.
And I mean, that fight became enormously famous for no mass when he quit in the 8th. What's your version of that? I mean, were you staggered initially?
Well, I just thought it was a trick. I did, when he did this. What does this mean? What does that mean? I'm sorry? Yeah, but he said he didn't say no mas. He said that he didn't say no mas. He said,
I'm away. I've had enough, man.
but Duran, guys, I have a picture of Duran. I was in Panama before I came here, doing a documentary on Duran, and he picked me up every night in a different car. But he is the worst driver, besides my wife, that I've ever known. He is the worst driver. He pays no attention to the road. He's like this. I said, what's going on? Watch the road. Watch the road.
Yes, anyone want to ask? Yes, thank you. Want to ask a question? Well, were you waving and it's so nice to see guy here?
Panama.
Well, being in the training camp with Muhammad Ali was just a dream come true. I mean, that was awesome because I've always idolized the man. I tried to emulate him. He was the greatest of all time. No question about that, Muhammad Ali.
Yes, gentleman standing up there. Yes, sir. Between you and Hagler.
Me.
Now there's a surprise.
See, this is what I understand what he's saying. I understand because they said, well, if it was 15 rounds, Ray I would prepare myself for 15 rounds. I was tired, no question about that. But he was tired too. But if it had to go 15 rounds, I would go 15 rounds. Thank you.
Gentlemen, yes, sir. If you can speak up.
I think it's a comparison between the 40s with Sugar Ray Robinson, Jake LaMotta, and all the rest of the great developments in middles at that time, and the time of the 80s, with yourself and Hackett, Chubby Hearns. Could you make me a little comparison? It's the difference between them, the 40s and the 80s.
The 40s and 80s.
All great fighters, no question about that. You know, you look at 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 80s. The fighters who were professional had no interest in being a professional fighter because I've heard of horrible stories about how fighters are taken advantage of and how they end up homeless, penniless. And one example was Joe Louis, who I saw as a greeter at Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas. I didn't want to be one of those guys, I should say. But when I got home, my father was very severely ill. My father had spinal meningitis and tuberculosis. My father went to a coma, rushed to the hospital, was fighting for his life. We had no money, and one of my mentors said, Ray, because of the television exposure you got from the Olympics, if you turn pro, you'll make a lot of money fast. And that's the only reason that I became a professional fighter, to pay the bills of my parents.
You know when Ali asked his mother to come home for the Olympics and was disappointed with the reception back home, did you find that you got a good reception there when you turned home as an Olympic champion?
Oh, without question, I had an incredible reception. But you know, for me, in the back of my head saying that this was my last fight, I was looking to do commercials and movies and things like that. Because if you know Bruce Jenner, who who was an Olympic decathlon, he got all the commercials. He was on Wheaties box, he was on this, that, and I was in the Wheaties box for sure, but never happened. Never happened.
Okay. How physically did he turn pro? Because you went pro in what, 77?
1977.
With Angelo Dundee?
Yes. And I fought every month to gain the experience, sometimes twice a month. So by the time, 2 years later, I won the World Championship of the welterweight division.
How much of an influence were you, Angelo Dundee, over here initially as Muhammad Ali's, the great mentor Muhammad Ali? Then he worked closely with you. A lot of when we look back to outsiders, a lot of what Ali did, the shuffle and the chain, and you were quite capable of doing and did do yourself. Did that come natural? It had nothing to do with Dundee, it had nothing to do with your love of Ali?
It was Muhammad Ali who influenced me to be more but yeah, it was all in fun.
And were you a big fan of Ali?
I was a major fan of Muhammad Ali. He was another reason that made me excel in the sport of boxing.
When we look back, taking your first world title fight, Wilfred Benitez, WBC welterweight in Vegas in '79, stopped in the 15th fighter of the year.
It was a big fight, because
he was special as well.
Well, he was special champion. He was champion at 17, and I beat him. And the rest is pretty much history. I just continued to fight top guys in the division. But prior to fighting Roberto Duran, I fought David Green.
Yeah, the next fight after Benitez.
Yes, yes.
I mean, when did you realize, as you must have done, that you had something special and could be exceptional if you stuck with it? I mean, did you know by beating?
Well, I knew I was something special when I was put into another tax bracket.
Yeah, that's a good way of fighting. That's a good way of fighting.
But you know what? The people ask me all the time, do you miss boxing? Do you miss boxing? I mean, I don't necessarily miss getting hit, but I miss the camaraderie. I miss being tactical, because I could create a vision in my head, a scenario that I would choreograph the fight in my head. All the fighters that I fought, prior to that fight, I picked a plan or strategy or tactics that would enable me to beat that guy, because the guys that I fought against were monsters, were beasts. Duran, Tommy, Marvin Hagler. It was amazing.
How involved was Angelo Dundee in that with you, Ray? Did you sit down with him to work out the strategy, just the training, just before the major fights?
You know what? Because I had so much experience, especially as an amateur. But then again, as each fight that I had, I would get better and better, because I would fight. Well, the first. I could fight anybody. Southpaws, sluggers, punchers, boxers. I could compete with any of those guys.
Yeah.
Like they ask me even now, could I if I could have a fight, could I fight or beat Floyd Mayweather Jr.? I knocked his father out in 1978, so I said like father, like son.
I like that. And Mayweather Jr., he's about the best around at the moment, isn't he?
Mayweather, without question, is a great fighter, and he could have fought in any era.
Yeah, yeah.
Who's best?
You boxed?
The best guy, without question, was Tommy Hearns. Tommy Hearns. Talk about Tommy Hearns, because we have such mutual respect between the two of us. Even today, because we're close friends, he calls me periodically on my cell phone. Hey Ray, I said, what's up, Tommy? Hey man, how much do you weigh? I said, what? Who cares? He said, come on, man, just you and I. I said, you and I doing what? He said, come on, man, we can travel the world and do exhibitions. I said, are you saying that you hit me, I hit you? He said, yeah. I said, Tommy, have you looked at your driver's license recently? I mean, he's a monster. He's a beast.
But you got on great with Tommy Hunter.
Oh yeah, I mean, we had the biggest fight. I mean, he's a beast. If you guys have not seen this guy in person, oh for sure, well, you know, I'm glad I'm talking about this because I'm putting together a world tour, and we're gonna come here. No question about that. We're gonna come here for you guys. For sure. We're going to have a chance to talk about our fights and how we felt and how we feel today. And I think it's going to be pretty, a lot of fun.
When taking you back to Dead Boy Green, who you fought, I mean, you knocked him out, left two.
No, but he really cooperated. I mean, really. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. Listen, that's a bad joke. That's not good. Yeah, but Dave Boy's he's my friend. I've been to his home. He's been to my home in Los Angeles. And
I think you said at the time the punch that actually put him down was the hardest you'd ever thought.
Yeah, I did hit him hard.
I mean, you hit him on Saturday and you woke up on Tuesday, didn't you?
You know what? I don't want to make fun of Dave. I did.
You had to write a few quid and you did a plan for that.
Let me tell you guys something. This is what happened. This is, even the public is not too privy to this, although I wrote this in the book. When I decided to come out of retirement the next time to fight Marvin Hagler, what had happened, was there ringside watching him fight John the Beast Mugabe in Las Vegas. And I'm watching him fight him, and me and Michael J. Fox were sitting together. And we had a couple of beers. Well, we had a lot of beers. And I looked, and I noticed that Hagler was being outbounced. I said, Michael, I can beat Hagler. He said, you want another beer? I said, yeah, but I can beat Hagler, man. So I called my attorney that night. I said, Mike, his name is Mike Trainer. I said, Mike, I want to fight Hagler. He said, you been drinking? I said, yeah, but that doesn't... Yeah. He said, let's talk and get home. So I get home, and I had this restaurant that I was part owner of. So I invited Marvin to come and help me open the restaurant. So he came. So we're sitting at the table having a few glasses of champagne, and we're sitting there, and I said, Marvin, by the way, man, good fight. I said, who's next? He said, you know, Ray, I don't know, man. You know, I'm just not motivated. I said, no shit. I said, well, who's next? You know, man, I cut easy. I said, no shit. So he told me all this valuable stuff, and then 2 weeks later I had announced that I wanted to fight him. And for some reason he was really pissed, man. He got mad. I don't know why. So now the fight's made. The fight's finally made.
Signed up for a while, yes, sir.
Who was the
hardest puncher you fought?
My first wife. Huh?
That's a good answer, yeah. Said his first wife.
No, the hardest puncher, that was a bad joke. The hardest puncher was Tommy Hearns. He's a beast.
Yeah. A lot of people might have thought you'd say Joanna Hagler.
Well, they were too. I mean, no question about it. Joanna is like a bull, and Hagler is heavy-handed. But Tommy Hearns is a freak of nature. He's such a big dude.
Absolutely. Before we finish, gentlemen, had his hand up here for a while. Yes, please. Yeah.
Oh. You know what? When they pulled the contender off the air, I didn't know why. I was so disappointed because the contender gave boxing what it needed, and that was the exposure, and also it allowed the fans to look outside the ring of who that boxer is and why he does what he does. And it was a great show, and I hope it comes back. It may not come back to the States, but if it comes back here, I would indeed host the show.
Excellent. To finish off, Sugar Ray, can we just ask, we've heard about the hardest puncher. Looking back at all the big marquee fights you had, what do you think was the greatest spectacle, the greatest fight you were involved in that you would take out and say, that was my greatest triumph?
You know, I've been very blessed, very fortunate to have had more than one defining moment in boxing. With Roberto Duran, with Tommy Hearns, with Marvelous Marvin Hagler. But those three are, without question, my most defining moments, and that's why I'm here.
Finally, Sugar Ray, do you think you were blessed by, funnily enough, by having other great fighters in your era which allowed you to establish the legend that you did because you had so many great guys to fight? It was a very special time. It took over from the heavyweights after Ali. And that was a wonderful thing for you, and why you kept coming back, I guess.
It's a simple equation. The reason you say you're the best pound for pound is when you fight the best pound for pound.
Exactly. Ladies and gentlemen, perhaps one of the greatest champions we've had, Sugar Ray Leonard. Please give me appreciation. Sugar Ray Leonard, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you so much.
Sugar Ray Leonard, thank you so much. Cheers, thank you.
Kieran.
Give another round of applause for Kieran. You know, I do these quite a bit. These tours are quite a bit. But it means the most to me when I have a connection with a young man like this, when it makes a difference in their life. It's like when I first met Muhammad Ali, I was this age too. And you know what? This is what being a Sugar Ray Leonard, being a world champion is truly all about. It's not about all the other crap. It's about this. It's about our kids. It's about this kid becoming a world champion. All right? That's what it's all about. Oh, you want a nickname? Oh, I'm sorry. Let's come back up here. Come back here. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, he wants a nickname.
I'm almost as fast as you were.
You want a nickname?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm more of a speed fighter.
What's your best punch? You have that many? You know what? I like the hair too, by the way. Sweet Kieran. How about that? Sweet Kieran? Ladies and gentlemen, the future champion of the world, Sweet Kieran. I love it. Thank you, man. Thank you, man. Sweet. Capital S.
Yes, would anybody else like to come in and fight Sugar Ray Leonard? Yeah, a guy here. Yes, sir. For the 1980s, for me, he is just legendary, the great, the one and only Sugar Ray Leonard, ladies and gentlemen. Sugar Ray.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Like we can start right at the very beginning, and presumably Mark knew you were going to be a star because he christened you Ray Charles Leonard. So I mean, with that name, Ray Charles, you were destined to be something special. You had to be.
Well, my mother named me after Ray Charles. She was such a major fan of his, and we knew by the time I was 3 or 4 that I had no future of being a singer. But I wish I could sing like Jeff.
Yeah, he was terrific.
He's pretty good.
He was good. He was good. But I mean, so we know where the Ray come from, Ray Charles, the background. But the Sugar nickname, everyone would naturally presume it must be after the other legendary Sugar Ray Robinson. Was it or was it not?
It was Sugar Ray Robinson. He was one of my idols, and I tried to emulate him because he had a flair, he had a charisma, he had style, and I used him as one of my idols. Muhammad Ali, Bruce Lee, and Elvis Presley.
That's not a bad order number. The Elvis man yourself.
That's a hell of a combination.
It is, absolutely. But 1 of 7 children, and almost, before you got started, as a little lad, is this true that you almost drowned during a flood in a creek when you were a small boy?
Yes, when I was, I don't know, about 8 or 9, maybe 10, I slipped in a creek that was flooded because of the rainstorm, and I couldn't swim, but I never gave up. I kept fighting to survive, I would pull myself up and fall back into that current. It was taking me down. So from here to where that door is.
Also on the same table, we've got a man who needs no introduction. He's a man who led the way with boxing tokens in the North East, done a lot for amateur boxing as well. Put your hands together for Martin Devlin. Nice to have you here, Martin. Great to see you. I said, well, I've got some great boxing talent coming through. You can see a lot of them fighting in April down at the Rain Meadows on Phil Jeffries' Pro Show. John Lewis Dickinson is going to be defending his title down there. Got some great lads as well from South Shields. The boxers on the table there as well will also be fighting, some of them on the May the 18th bill at the O2 Academy. Put your hands together for Davy Ferguson, John Lewis Dickinson, David Lake, Lee Mould, Anthony Nelson, Akash Hussain, and one of the best trainers in the North East, based in South Shields, Malgate. Stand up, lads, take a bow. Nice to have you here, lads. Well done. Good luck in April to the lads fighting in April. We know the lads in May will do well as well. Okay, the curry's going to be served now. Put your hands together, please, for an up-and-coming boxer, fights in the amateurs. Keep an eye out for him, because I think he'll be one of my first pro signings when I eventually get a manager's license as well. Put your hands together for young Jeffrey Mulholland. He's a singer by night, he's a boxer by day. Put your hands together for him, he's going to entertain you throughout the night.
The heavyweights were smaller. The heavyweights today are much, much bigger. Far bigger than the other guys.
Absolutely. Gentleman down the front. Look, he's asking the same question down the front, actually. Who's the best in today's fight?
The best fighter today that is pound for pound. You know, Mayweather, you gotta look at Mayweather. Fundamentally, Mayweather is the best fighter I've seen. He really, really is. Mayweather could have fought in any era, without question. I think that his natural talent, his defense is great. It's fantastic. I will select him.
Yes, gentlemen here. Yes, sir.
And one day my brother Roger said, come down to the boxing gym. I went down to the gym, I put those gloves on, and all of a sudden, I found myself. That was my calling as a fighter.
I was going to say, if you didn't want to go into basketball or football, you picked a real sport not to get injured going into boxing, didn't you?
Somewhat, yes.
But it was a rapid rise even through the amateurs. leading up to the Olympic gold in '76. I mean, you seemed to shoot off from the very start.
Well, I became a boxer, amateur boxer at 14, and I had a record of 150 fights, I think it was, and I lost 5.
Yeah.
I was so determined. Clap, it's okay.
I didn't buy for an amateur record, believe me.
I would train so hard, and I always did more than the other guy. I would run another mile. I would do 10 more sit-ups. I would hit the bags instead of 3-minute rounds to be received so well and with so much love. I just don't understand the weather.
Great stuff. Boxing who are sitting in the room tonight. Some great lads, some great talent from not just Newcastle but South Shields as well. So.